low rarity decks. They're common in other card games such as Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! However, Digimon is arguably one of the cheapest card games that you can get into, so there isn't really a need for a low rarity deck. With some meta decks even costing around £40 or less, there's just no need for it. However, that changes today. In this video, I decide to try the impossible, making Digimon even cheaper than it already is. Would I be able to make a deck that includes no supers, no secrets or promo cards? And on top of that, can I win a Digimon tournament using a low rarity deck? Let's go. So the rules are quite simple for this challenge. I can make any deck that I want, I just cannot include cards that are super, secret or promo cards. As long as I keep in with those deck building rules, this is a valid attempt. Now I already do have some ideas of what decks might end up being good in this type of format. And the first one I want to talk about is the Bunny Alliance deck. No, not the version of Bunny Alliance that was in the starter deck. I'm talking about the original version of that deck, making its debut in EX4 Alternative Being. In that set, they introduced a brand new keyword called Alliance. And unfortunately, due to the support in that set, the deck wasn't really off to a huge start. The deck focuses on its rookies, allowing you to search your deck for the cards that you need, and then when you have the inherited underneath, you get to Digivolve for cheaper when you use the Alliance effect. This meant you could easily go from a level 4 to potentially level 5 and level 6 in one turn. Now, the good thing about this deck is that there was only one super for this strategy, and it's the Black Mega Gargomon. But even when this deck first came out, people weren't really playing it because they thought other versions such as Imperial Digimon Dragon Mode were a better fit for this deck. However, what we will be playing if we decide to go with this deck is the other level 5s. The level 5s have huge utility in this deck, such as recovering one. We also have allowing us to play a level 3 from trash, and also de-digivolving one. So I did mention that there was another starter deck released for the Alliance strategy, and we can use some of the cards in that set to our benefit because they are not super rares or above. Stuff like Double Typhoon is just a generic search that we can use that also allows us to suspend Digimon in security and then also get to play a Terriermon and Lotmon for free when we need it. However, my biggest worry with this deck, and if we decide to go with this going forward, is that I don't know if we have a good top end of the deck. Yeah, sure, we have level 4s and level 5s pretty much sorted, but level 6 I feel is a little bit iffy. I don't really think there's anything crazy at the level 6 that also counts as a dual color green card. So I'm gonna have to do some research on that. But if there is something, maybe we go with this deck. Surely there's got to be something outside of EX4 Alternative Being for this deck. Surely. Now another deck that I was thinking of playing for this strategy was Red Hybrid. Now I know what you're immediately thinking. You don't have access to Emperor Greymon, arguably one of the best cards in the strategy, but does it really matter that much? The Red Hybrid deck has always had a huge consistency just due to the fact that it can swing for 2 to 3 security on a given turn. And outside of Emperor Greymon, everything else in this deck is played. Obviously there are cards like Ukomon that people tend to play now, but we can just play something else in its spot. And even if we are looking for another level 6, I'm sure there's one that we could potentially pick up that might fit the job as well. Now, while we mentioned Red Hybrid, we can also look at other hybrid decks, mainly Yellow Hybrid. This deck is also relatively cheap and has all of its pieces together. Now, my issue with hybrid decks, if we were to play it in this challenge, was going to be the fact that I just feel like it's going to be quite a boring experience for me to play and for you guys to watch, quite frankly, because everyone is kind of sick and tired of Red Hybrid as a whole. I mean, it's been probably one of the biggest meta decks of this format. So yeah, not too sure if I'm going to be picking this deck up. Now, there is one more deck which I feel like might be able to fit the brief for this challenge, and it's a deck that was so powerful it pretty much got nerfed straight away on release. Yep, I'm talking about BT10's Cross Encounter Cross Heart. Now, the good thing that we have going for with the Cross Heart deck is that pretty much everything at the base level is rare and below. So stuff like the Tamers, the Digimon are all pretty much covered. However, there is a big hole. Because we can't play supers, we can't play cards like Shoutmon X5 and X7. So surely at that point, you can't play the deck. I mean, these cards are pivotal for their strategy. Well, I think there might be just enough other Shoutmons that we can play in this deck. For example, we have access to X2, X3, and X4. X4 obviously being the limited one, but we also have access to X3, which is a normal searcher essentially, and X2 is kind of like this suspend it kind of effect. However, if we were to go into this Shoutmon / Cross Heart deck, we immediately run into a problem with our Shoutmon line. It's the fact that X2 doesn't count itself as a Cross Heart for some reason. And because of that, that card isn't going to be nearly as searchable as we want it to be in this strategy. Either way, we have 3 decks here that have some sort of power level that we can look at. What I'm going to do now is going to start building some test decks to see if there is actually a way that we could potentially, make these decks playable. So let's do that. Oh boy, we've been cooking. Maybe cooking a bit too much in my opinion, but I feel like I've come across a list that might be something we might take. So here is the deck list. So not only am I playing Alliance in this deck, I'm also playing a brand new strategy that was released in BT15 Exceed Apocalypse, and that is the Oryumon line. The idea of the Oryumon line is the fact that you get to suspend guys to go into huge effects. So for example, you're able to unsuspend your Oryumon, but you're also able to potentially bounce a guy back, or Digivolve for free, or just play a guy when you can. So this deck has quite a lot of stuff going for it. And in combination with the Alliance support from EX4, I think we might have something here. And it turns out combining these are, it's a pretty good idea because a lot of the support in the EX4 Alliance support as a whole actually benefits the Oryumon line as well. The Terriermon and Lopmon, for example, allow us to search for any 2-color green card. And it turns out the Oryumon is both green and black. So all of those pieces are searchable within the deck. And the Alliance issue isn't going to be an issue at all because we have access to cards like Double Typhoon and just playing rookies as a whole just to get more rookies out for the Alliance effect. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows for this deck strategy. Unfortunately, one of the biggest issues that we have is the fact that there isn't a lot of Digipolice in this Digimon line as a whole to potentially make it more consistent than we want it to be. The issue is that this is only from one set, BT15, and obviously you combine it with stuff from BT14, but the cards that are BT14 we can't really play, unfortunately. And we're also missing out on a super which is quite pivotal for this strategy, Ryudamon. Ryudamon is a very powerful card and usually makes Oryumon worthwhile. It allows you to put Shuyulin, which is the archetypal tamer, underneath the Ryudamon, and that allows you to set up all your combos on the turn you go into it. So yeah, missing out on that can definitely be a bit of a problem. We also have no way to search the tamer, as it turns out. A lot of the cards say that you can search for a green card or green tamer, but unfortunately Shuyulin is a black tamer card, so not searchable unfortunately in this deck. However, I think there is enough draw in this deck to actually find the Shuyulin itself. Now, while I could play a more competitive deck like in a Cross Heart or a Red Hybrid, I think I'm going to go with this Bunny Alliance deck, or should I say like Digi Alliance deck, because I think this is probably going to be the most fun deck to play out of the 3. It's also something that is pretty unique as a whole. I feel like there's a bigger ceiling to this deck than a Red Hybrid and a Cross Heart. There's also the fact that I haven't even played any of these versions. I haven't played the EX4 Alliance support at all, and I haven't even tried the BT15 Oryumon at full power because I didn't have Ryudamons at the time. So I feel like this combination of cards to make the deck is going to be an interesting one for me, and I'm going to pick this for the tournament. So now is the time to refine the build. Alright, so I feel like I've got to a good enough point where the deck is going to be at its best. Maybe if I spent another couple of months working on it, maybe it'll be better, but I think this is probably the best version that we have currently available to us. So let's go over the deck list. 4 Gummimon, 4 EX4 Terriermon, 4 Lopmon, and 4 Terriermon Assistant. 4 Ginryumon, 3 Terurimon, and 3 Wendigomon. 4 Hisarumon, 2 Antliamon, 1 more Antliamon, and 1 Black Rapidmon. 4 Oyumon, and 1 Cherubimon. 1 Hidden Potential Discovered, 4 Double Typhoon, and 2 Heaven's Judgment. 4 Shu Yulin, 2 Mimi, and 2 Henry Wong and Shu Chong Wong. So with the deck built, I think it's time we go to locals and see what our Digi Alliance deck can do. I'm pretty confident with the build overall. I think there was some issues in the first version that I showed you that I feel like I fixed in version 2, just in case we don't see the Digi-Police cards at all. But I also feel like there is going to be some times where this deck has some really good upsides, but also some really, really low downsides. But other than that, I think it's time to go to locals. So let's go. Alright, so we are here at locals and we've got a pretty big scene this time around. Some people are coming back to the game just to get ready for the BT16 launch. So hopefully people are not playing at competitive decks. I think it's not going to be so competitive because in their spare time they are playing One Piece. So I think I'm okay, hopefully. Should be around 3 to 4 rounds today, so let's get into the rounds. Well, that didn't go as planned, did it? Let's just get straight into the game so we can discuss what went wrong in this tournament run. So my first round opponent was against Shine Greymon, and they have essentially 2 modes. One is they get everything and they win the game, or they brick and they hate their lives. Unfortunately, they ended up winning both games. Now, when I first started playing this matchup, I felt pretty good actually. I was able to search quite a few cards in my opening turn, able to get some advantage going into the following turns. However, the issues already started to mount up as soon as we started searching. The fact that we weren't able to search the Shu Yulin kind of just meant that our deck fell apart quicker than I expected. My thought process was that as we're going to be drawing a lot of cards through Digievolution, I thought that maybe we could just draw into it, but unfortunately, you just can't. Another big issue that I had in this matchup was the fact that I just couldn't keep a body on the board. Every time I'd play like a Terriermon or a Lopmon ready for the following turn for an alliance play, it was always met with a Marcus Daemon, the one that allows you to spend to do -3k, so it felt like I wasn't able to get any board pressure within this game. Now, one of the games I was able to actually go into the Oriumon and pop off by going into bottom decking one of their Digimon and then also clearing their field, but unfortunately it was too little too late, and then my opponent was able to win the game shortly after. It was just simple. I wasn't able to have enough gas in the tank, and that caused me to lose round 1. Going into round 2, and I definitely had a confidence hit. I thought going into this tournament I had a pretty consistent deck compared to some other decks that are available in the room, but unfortunately that didn't matter when I wasn't able to find key cards, and that is still an issue in round 2. Round 2 was against Vmon Armor, and I was a bit worried because previously in other tournaments that I played at this locals, this deck pretty much wins on like turn 3 or 4 quite consistently, so I was definitely a little bit scared as my deck takes quite a bit to get going. Now, unfortunately, game 1 was a complete write-off because I wasn't able to get anything going during these games. I had my opening hand and I didn't have a rookie in it, and then I mulliganed that away, and I also didn't get a rookie in that hand either. So essentially, all that I was able to do this game was play Ginryumon and pass, and unfortunately, Magnamon is a pretty good card against things that don't have sources underneath them. So essentially, it was constantly going back to my hand and it lost me game 1. Now game 2 was definitely more competitive. I was able to set up a board pretty quickly in my opinion, and I was able to, control his field using Heaven's Judgment. However, unfortunately, my opponent is also running Heaven's Judgment and he returned the favor by clearing my field. At this point, I wasn't able to essentially build a board back because I didn't have anything in raising, and so that essentially caused me to lose round 2. So after losing game 2, I'm now 0-2. So yeah, definitely not as confident as I once was, for sure. Now, the final game I did not record because at that point my mental has completely gone, if I'm being perfectly honest. So yeah, I didn't end up recording my game 3. In fact, I was actually tempted to leave early because of how badly the deck did. However, thankfully I did stay. My opponent was playing War Greymon, and this deck, you know, continues to get support, but not a lot of support in the latest set. And in his first game, he actually had a pretty decent start. He was able to go into the Metal Grey X and then swing for 3 checks at security. You know, that's pretty big, but unfortunately for him, I was able to control his side of the field and then go for game in game 1. And game 2, my opponent bricked. So he started off his turn by playing a level 4 Greymon, which meant that I had a lot of memory to play with, to set up with. I was able to set up the board completely in my favor and get ready for an Oriyumon push on the following turn, completely destroying his field. However, he did build a stack, and with all of my stuff suspended, I was expecting him to swing into my big guy Oriyumon because he has more DP than me. But he decided to swing for security instead, so I got pretty lucky there for sure. So on the following turn, I was able to then just complete the game, swing in for game, and we go and end the tournament with 1 win and 2 losses. Now, I'm obviously not happy about the result. 1 win and 2 losses is just not good in my opinion. I really did think before the tournament started I was able to have a decent chance of at least getting like 2 wins, maybe even winning the tournament, but once I started playing the first game, I quickly realized that there were so many issues in my deck, such as consistency, finding certain cards, and just the combination of cards as a whole. Now that I look back on this challenge, I definitely do feel like I picked the incorrect deck. I feel like Red Hybrid or Crossheart could have done potentially better in these situations, but I decided to go for the Digi Alliance deck, and that definitely did shoot me in the foot. However, even though I'm not very happy with how the challenge went, I feel like I did learn a lot of things in the challenge itself. I felt like I learned more about deck building as a whole, and while, you know, the experience here might not help me with other decks in the future, I feel like it is a good point to be like, hey, look at this, look at what happened when you combine this with this. Maybe don't combine it with this and this in the future. So I feel like I definitely did learn quite a bit here. Maybe the deck would have been better if I had the Ryudamon Super. And just overall, I just hope that I can take the knowledge that I had from this and use it in the future. And maybe, just maybe, I'll attempt it again at some point.